Hello and welcome to the Good Morning Atomy podcast. I'm JP and today I'm joined by Richard Nugent from 21 Leadership.
It's great to be here. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really good. How have you been? Thank you so much for travelling down. Appreciate your time.
It's a pleasure. It's been a busy start of the year. It's brilliant to be here.
Yeah, I know, it's good. I mean, just for context, like you and I have obviously been in touch about this podcast for quite some time, so I'm thoroughly excited to dive in. Lots of good stuff to come, and hopefully, you know, our members get lots of tidbits and
I'm happy to share as much as I can.
Yeah. Cool. All right, let's go straight to it. So first of all, tell us a little bit about 21 Leadership, how it works, like, and what your role is.
So I'm the MD of 21 Leadership. So the whole business was formed on a core belief we have about leadership, which is that leadership is the competitive advantage in business. So if you take two similar kinds of organizations, either one can invest in more IT or greater talent, but the more people you have at all levels who can coach and motivate and inspire and lead change, then I believe it's that organization that's likely to be more successful in the long run. So most of our clients are big blue chip organizations. We're really lucky to have lots of clients who I feel in some ways we punch above our weight. You know, we're classed as what would be a boutique consultancy in that we're relatively small, but our clients are FTSE top 100, FTSE top 250 businesses. We've worked in every continent across the world in the last 10 years. And so I'm really lucky to lead a group of people who are brilliant at what they do, who are entrepreneurs in their own right. Yeah. And we do some brilliant work with some brilliant clients along the way.
That's good. So how did you kind of get into the leadership game? What did you do before, like, this kind of line of work?
Yeah, so if I had a trade, it would be as a trainer, I suppose. So I started as a trainer when I was about 21. I worked in a little financial services business, and I remember going on an induction course and thinking, I want to do that.
Yeah.
And at the time, I didn't know anything about training. I was still relatively young. I'd been involved in football a little bit. I played football at grassroots all my life, and I'd taken my coaching badges when I was really young. So maybe there was something in there that I knew that was a path for me. But an opportunity came up where one of the managers left, and they decided instead of recruiting experienced trainers, they'd recruit people who were subject matter experts. And I was a bit of an expert in mortgages at the time. So yeah, I went for the interview and I did a presentation, and they hired me. And it took me from there. So in 2003, I left corporate world and I had the opportunity to work for this amazing consultancy who were experts in accelerated learning and brain-friendly learning. We had a neuroscientist who was part of the team. So it was a real focus on not just what it was we were training or developing people in, but actually how people learn at their best. And you know, the vast majority of formal education and corporate training is almost designed in the opposite way to how we're wired to learn. So I was really lucky to work with an amazing team and an amazing lady called Kimberly Hare for 8 years. And then after that, I stepped away and set up my own brand and my own business, which is how 21 Leadership was born.
No, lovely. You know, this is just an interesting question just off of your experiences. So, you know, back when you were 21, you know, obviously you're confident, you're feeling hungry, and you know, you're ready to go. Have you always been someone who's quite kind of leadership orientated and outspoken almost, or the glue, the glue to keep people grounded?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think I always was, and I don't know why or how, but I've captained pretty much every football team that I played for when I played football. And in most of those teams and squads, I was probably the worst player technically. But there was something about, I don't know, my attitude or my approach. And I played basketball and I captained the year above at basketball at school. So there was something about that. And I don't know if part of it was just a nurture thing in that I've got two older brothers, one's 7 years older, one's 8 years older, and they were my heroes when I was a kid. And I kind of hung about with them probably more than I should have done. You know, I think I was the irritating little brother. Or I don't know, there was something definitely in when I was brought up that probably pushed me into that. But I don't think I was confident. I don't think I was, you know, my definition of confidence, confidence being a feeling, there was definitely something grounded about that kind of role, felt natural to me. But I certainly wasn't adopting it because I thought I was the best at it, or I thought I was particularly technically skilled, because in a lot of those environments I knew that I wasn't. But there was something that existed then and still does in me that is really, if something needs to be done, if something can be better, let's just do it, let's just make it better. And I think that pushing myself into that situation, maybe it's a slight impatience in terms of like, let's get something done. And if that means that we can get something done without me having to do all of the work myself, if I can lead other people to it, then that's really helpful as well.
Yeah, I think two key things I picked up there was nurture being one key word. I think that, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't have that luxury, I'm the oldest, but having older siblings and, watching by example, obviously you watch what to do, and, you gather that, you gain that sense of patience and vision, and I suppose you carried that into, the sports that you've done and also the work that you've done. Yeah. And then I was going to say, I suppose you leaned into like your internal self-awareness to know that, it takes a lot to admit that perhaps you're not the best in the team, but if you're the one that can be like, right, no, I know what you're really good at, I know what you're really good at, I'll pass the ball to you because I know you're a better finisher, no, play it this way, or, I think it's kind of attributed to how you are now, because you obviously have always had self-awareness of what you can and can't do, and it's quite powerful. Yeah,
one of the great team gurus that we read from, a guy called Patrick Lencioni, he talks about trust and how you build trust in a team, and he talks about vulnerability, and it's something I think that's spoken more and more about in organizations these days. But vulnerability isn't just about saying, here's what I'm not good at, or this is what I'm struggling with. That's an important part of it, but I think it's two sides of a coin. Vulnerability is about being able to say, here's what I'm really good at, and I'm okay to say I'm really good at this, and here's what I'm not good at, here's what you're much better at than me, because that kind of conversation or mindset allows you to build a group of people around you, no matter what the situation is, that will be more successful. And I think definitely from an entrepreneur's point of view, somebody who's looking to build a business, understanding what you're good at and being proud of what you're good at, and being willing to tell the world about what you are good at, and then to know what you're not good at and build a group of people around you to support you in that, is such a key for success in my opinion.
That's it. I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel that a lot of people, I have a few friends who are starting their own businesses now and things like that, and they try to wear every hat, and they're like, sort of micromanaging every process of their business. But in my experience, it's like, if I were in their shoes and I knew that, let's just say I had got a new shiny office, I had loads of flat pack furniture, I would honestly outsource it, because I know that I wouldn't be able to do it. So, I would then be able to spend more time concentrating on the business as opposed to, messing around trying to, get frustrated trying to fill for IKEA flat pack. And the point I'm trying to make is that I think that, especially, in the business of Atomy and things like that, is that a lot of people, they try to do everything at one time. Whereas if you kind of concentrate and see, right, I'm good at this, so I'm going to get this, I need to lean into this person for that, or lean into that. You know what I'm trying to
Absolutely.
say? It's about that relationship and awareness to know what you're doing. But no, I think...
And there's something about the things that we're good at, we tend to be more passionate about.
Absolutely.
And therefore, the more you kind of follow those passions, then that rubs off on others. Now, that doesn't mean we can't then work to get better at the stuff we're not good at. But my kind of PA, EA, Amanda, is phenomenal. She runs my diary, she books all my travel, she takes care of all of our invoicing. She is amazing at the stuff that I'm not very good at.
Exactly.
Now, could I learn to be better at that? Yeah, I could. Would I ever be passionate about it? I don't think so. Is it the best use of my time? Absolutely not. So there isn't a straight formula, but there's definitely something about understanding where you are, leaning into your passions, bringing in support for the stuff you aren't good at, and then while you're doing that, also being able to fill gaps along the way.
Yeah, Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Can you tell me a little bit about your passion for speaking and public speaking?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question because I couldn't pinpoint a moment where I said all of a sudden I like being in front of groups or being on the stage. Although maybe that moment I mentioned earlier on where I was on an induction program, I thought I'd like to do that. But really, there's an interesting balance in speaking in public, leading groups, facilitating, selling, putting messages across, which is it should both be completely about you and also at the same time be all about them. And that, I know that sounds like a conflict, but I think that's really what I get passionate about. The tools and techniques, and look, I'll say this really openly, and anyone kind of watching, listening, this is really important here. It's possible for anybody to learn charisma, to learn confidence, to learn to be a brilliant speaker, a presenter, or salesperson. It's all of the skills and the tools and techniques are completely learnable. But over the years, the people who I've worked with or studied and sometimes modeled who were amazing at it, there is an art form to the ability to be brilliant and charismatic in moments, and at other moments make it all about the audience. And that's really what I get really quite geeky about, understanding that balance. When I worked with Kaizen, which was the consultancy I started with in 2003, one of the competencies we had to demonstrate regularly was that we could light up a room, but we didn't have to.
I like that.
And I think that's really
like
lovely because
if
anyone's ever been to like a networking event, we'll have all had that awful experience where somebody hones in on you. I remember going to a networking event in my early days, and this guy cornered me and talked at me for 25 minutes about his business. And then at the end of it said, "So would you like me to come and refit your shop?" And I said, "I don't have a shop." And no, don't. And he looked at me like it was my fault and kind of sloped off like he'd wasted 25 minutes of his life, which he had. But that was because in that moment it was all about him. And I know it's a bit of an old cliche, but we tend to be most interested by the people who are most interested in us.
Absolutely.
And the more we kind of, if we're looking to engage people and we're looking to network and people connect with, the best thing we can do is find out loads about them and then be able to switch on, the charisma and the presentation skills to then get our message across. So I think that's what fascinates me.
No, I think that's a great answer. You're right. People are more interested in the audience if they appear to be more interested in them, and managing that relationship. I think in the scenario with the guy that was talking at you for 25 minutes straight, I think that if we were to role play that scenario again, the first question I would have asked is, do you have a shop? Do you know what I mean? He had to take accountability for the situation because he just presumed. And I think that the point I was going to lead on to is that with public speaking and like building up the charisma and all the points that you just spoke about, would you say it's fair to say that you need to surround yourself with the right people and be in the right environment? Because otherwise, you're going to get knockbacks, you're going to get fear, you're going to get the fear of posting is real for some people, and the fear of over posting and over complicating things, be it online or offline, be it like an event or something like that. So I think the question I'm kind of leaning into is, how did you, in your kind of early days, or when because just because you're passionate about something, it doesn't mean it's plain sailing. So how did you manage, or how do you continue to manage kind of rejection, or say if you go to an event and you don't give it your all, say because you have background things going on, like say a family member as well, or something like that, how do you kind of position yourself afterwards and kind of do a mini debrief?
I think how I do it now is different to when I started.
Okay, how did you do it?
So certainly at the start, I think it affected me more than it does now. Certainly in some ways. The stock answer is if at the beginning you work on building your tribe, and you focus on connecting with the people who are like you, and are interested in the product or service or whatever it might be. So the more of your audience who are on board, the better. But of course, that's the stock answer. The reality is, if I was to start from scratch in a totally different industry, if I was to jet off to another planet which looked very much like Earth, where nobody knew us and it was a whole new thing, then the first thing I'll try and do is build a following. But if I don't know the industry, I don't know the audience, it's difficult to do that.
Yeah.
So I think there's something about how I framed those knockbacks and how I framed that feedback. And it wasn't that I didn't value it or respond to it or sometimes get hurt by it, but I never saw it as fatal. You know, I never saw it as just because this person says, you know, I don't like it, I don't like you, that wasn't as good as this person.
Yeah.
That was relevant, but it didn't mean that the others didn't.
Absolutely.
And I think as I fast forward over the years, I guess partly because I've got a bigger database of success, I suppose.
Yeah.
But also just I think as over the years, I understand more that has to be part of the game.
Absolutely.
You know, if we're building a tribe or we are connecting with a certain group, selling to a certain group, building a business with a certain group, my utter belief is that if we're doing that right, there are a group of people, a much bigger group of people, who we're not right for and they're not right for us.
Absolutely, and that is really, really good, because people need to understand that you can't sell to everyone. You can't have 100% succession rate with, you know, if I come to you with a great idea, you know, you might say no and just say, look, great idea, I think you fly with it, but it's just not for me. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's a real 100%. Thing that must happen all the time for you.
Yeah, and when it comes, if we talk selling, and certainly in the UK, right, selling is sometimes a dirty word, but it's so not. And the whole point of it is, so let me try and give when I was 20 years younger and 3 stone lighter, Hollister was right up my street.
Yeah.
If I walked into Hollister now,
yeah,
they would probably wonder where my son was or my daughter was, right? and that whole game is right, and it's the same for Atomy products. It's the same for the services and what we offer. There is an audience which it is right for, and you know, if you look at the whole population, you actually only need a tiny proportion of them to connect with you, put their hands up, and then you sell to them, convert them, to make the whole relationship worthwhile. And therefore, to go back to the original point, I would worry more if nobody was saying, no, you're not right for me.
That's it.
If nobody was disagreeing, if everybody was saying, yeah, that's quite interesting, that would bother me. If people are going, this is amazing, and other people are going, that's not right for me, that is perfect.
I think what's good about getting feedback, especially constructive feedback, be it, you know, some people are a little bit overzealous and they can be quite, like, they can lean into the negatives more than positives or whatever, but the point I'm trying to make is just that, correct me if I'm wrong, but when you get feedback, valuable feedback that you can actually work with, you feel this sense of self-control, like you're in control of the situation, because you know, oh, they didn't like that, or less of this, less of that, and you can kind of restructure or say, well, to be honest, I don't think this audience is probably not my audience, so, you know, I gave it a crack. Didn't work, but no, thank you for the opportunity and all that. But yeah, how do you kind of define self-control in terms of presenting and speaking and holding a room and kind of, you know, engaging with an audience?
How do I define it? I think it depends. It depends on the audience. But look, one of the things I was reflecting on as I was thinking about this is a skill that I learned from modelling somebody who we watched who was presenting 9,000 people at a time.
Yeah. And
we modelled him and tried to understand some of the things that he did. And one of the things that we learned about him was that he didn't actually connect with everyone. What he did amazingly was connect with one or two people. And if you've ever been in a bar or in a social situation and you see two people's eyes meet across the room and there's a connection, not when it's you, but when you see it happen and there's that almost that energy exchange.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's powerful.
And what he did was basically he created that between a really small number of people, and it drew everybody else in. And that's when I'm presenting, that's one of the things that I do. I don't look to, there's a difference between making eye contact, sweeping with everyone in the room. But in terms of engaging an audience, what I'm looking to do is I know I'm going to get hit because she's already making eye contact. And actually he's in. And if I can connect with them, the rest will come in. Now, in terms of presenting, if we look at our brand promise, if you like, for in our kind of experience promise with 21 Leadership, is we sum it up as always engaging.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm looking to do with an audience, but not with everyone all the time, because I know if we do it with the right number of people, then everyone else will be drawn in. And actually, that's an actual thing that I do when I'm presenting to a group, no matter how big or small. But if you use it as a metaphor for your social media posting and how you connect with your audience broadly, do the same. Connect with those people who are in, and other people will be drawn.
Yeah, it's all about like energy and attraction, isn't it? In that sense, just do it, and then just duplicate, and then by de facto, your tribe, as you keep saying, will grow and grow and grow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Fascinating stuff. Right, we're gonna head to a short break now, so enjoy a few adverts, but we'll be right back. Welcome back. So I'm sat here with Richard Nugent. We've been speaking all about confidence, leadership qualities, and ways to overcome frictions in business and leadership. So let's carry on with that trend. Cool. So can you tell me about someone who inspired you, or a brand that inspires you? Anything about that? Do you read any books?
Yeah, well, we read constantly. We're normally on 2 or 3 books at any particular time. We put 20% of our profit back into our own development all the time.
That's great.
Now, that's partly, if we're a development business, we should be developing ourselves. And if we're asking people to invest in us to coach them, we should see coaching as valuable enough for us to invest in it. So that that goes without saying. We're reading constantly. It's hard to narrow down of the hundreds and hundreds of people who've inspired us. I mentioned one person earlier on, Kimberly Hare, who was really, you talk about stand on the shoulders of giants. She's the person whose shoulders I've stood on most of all. She brought me out of corporate world and taught me how to be a consultant and taught me lots about protecting your value. She was amazing, a pioneer. She was voted one of the 6 most leading experts in brain-friendly learning in the world at one point.
She's still active?
Not in that particular field. She got into a very specific form of a philosophy of, I guess, coaching, and what I would call the modern psychology. She would call it something different, which is called 3 principles. So if anybody, which is very much about our understanding of how much we create our experiences. So in 3 principles, you know, one of the core bits is that 100% of what we experience comes from the thoughts we have at any time.
Yeah.
And that we create our worlds completely. And there's more to it than that. That's kind of one of my understandings of it. So she's a huge proponent of that, and you know, actually very much into saving the planet as much as anything else. There's another guy called Michael Neal, who actually is in the similar field, but Michael Neal is probably the best coach I've ever had. Phenomenal human being, incredibly insightful. I spent invested in a year being mentored and coached by him, and I still draw so much from that now, which again is more than 10 years on. Michael Heppel, who is probably the best public speaker that I've seen in the UK, phenomenal human being, good friend of mine, has sold millions of books, certainly hundreds of thousands of books. I'm sure he's corrected me in this before, but is, you know, and has coached people like Davina McCall over the years and various other celebrities. And he is just like, listening to him speak is like having a shot of espresso. And then I was thinking about books I've read, and one of the seminal books, which again I don't know how much of the audience this will be relevant for, and it's an old book now, but there was a guy called Colin Rose who wrote a book called Accelerated Learning for the 21st Century, and he wrote it back in the 90s, and talks so much about how we learn and how formal education doesn't serve people, and how education could change and how to develop people. And you know, anybody starting out in wanting to design things that are going to engage other people, whether that's public speaking or whether that's kind of mini training seminars or the kind of things where you might just get people round and show them products. Actually, I think it would probably still be a good read, you know, even 25 years on.
Well, yeah, why not? I mean, we're still quoting Socrates and, you know, all of the great Greek psychologists and things like that. So why not?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and if I was going to recommend one book, and I was trying to think hard about this because there's so many on selling and influencing and confidence, but if I was going to recommend one which was slightly left field, there's a book called The Solutions Focus. It's by Mark McCurgo and Paul Z. Jackson. Again, it's not a new book, but Solutions Focus is a specific approach which is actually has its roots in family therapies, and then in the 80s a group of people brought it into the business world and used it as a change process. But the whole philosophy behind the model is that you don't have to focus on problems in order to make change. And instead of doing lots of problem analysis, then if what we do is understand what we want, focus on what's working already, do more of that, and then look to create small steps to improve, then that is likely to get you better results more quickly than doing lots of analysis of why something might have gone wrong or why something isn't working. So I'd highly recommend The Solutions Focus.
I think that's really powerful, actually, and that's something that I've been doing in my personal life as well. Trying to spend less time analysing where it went wrong and perhaps looking at where it could go right or what the learnings are, so that you kind of move forward. And I think that is a very powerful thing for our members who are listening, because, you know, in the kind of selling game, the public speaking game and leadership model and things like that, it's, you know, you'll do a show, or you'll do a segment, or you'll do a Zoom call or a Zoom conference, and you're like, oh, that was really bad, like I don't think they were into it or whatever. But, you know, if you apply your time and lean into like humility and like give yourself a chance, then you'd be like, yeah, that didn't work, but, you know, don't beat yourself up about it, is what I'm trying to say.
Totally. And there's a part of Solutions Focus called scaling, which is if you think about whatever it is you're focusing on, and you did a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 is the perfect.
Yeah.
And you're at the scale where, you know, on a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 is the perfect, where are you now? When I wrote the book on confidence, for example, just because it links it together, I got loads of people referred to me for confidence coaching. And one of the early questions I'd asked them in the conversation was, so if on a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 is you being the most confident version of you that you could ever possibly imagine, where are you now? And people would do this, probably like 3. And they'd be kind of physiologically, they'd be like 3. And I'd go, okay, So you're telling me that on a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 is the most confident version of yourself you can imagine, you're already a third of the way there. That's amazing.
That's it.
And before I did anything else, before I did anything, there was a shift in the mindset of, oh, actually this, so it stops, and this is the whole solutions focus kind of, again, philosophy. It stops being a problem now. It's just a thing. Oh, and actually I am, and then you follow with, okay, so what's got you that high?
Yes.
And again, in problem focus, if you were a 3 out of 10, you'd go, oh, how's it got that bad? What are all the things you've done wrong? Whose fault is it? Is it because of COVID?
It's true.
No. So if you're a 3, what's made you a 3 rather than a 2?
Yeah.
What's already working that all you did is more of that, it would move you just 1 point up the scale. And the interesting thing is, as soon as we start understanding what in solutions focus are called the counters, the places where it's going well already, and we do more of those, it isn't just going to move you from a 4, it's going to move you to a 5 or a 6 or a 7. And when I did that with people specifically on confidence, what emerged, which is part of the whole my view on confidence, is that most of us live most of our lives completely confident anyway.
Yes.
Most people are completely confident in huge areas of their lives. They just don't notice it because confidence is part of our default state.
Yes. Yeah.
It's like, it's like being upright. Or when we go home at night and we sit in our favorite seat on the sofa, or we go and get a hug off a loved one, or we see our kids or see our dog or whatever it is, that's all confidence. Most of us don't have to go through a process to kind of be confident to open the door or come into work in the morning. We just don't notice. And when we think we aren't confident people, all it is we're recognizing that in certain situations with certain people in certain areas, that confidence isn't there at that moment in time. And when you make that distinction, it changes the whole game.
Absolutely. I think that, I love it. Even now I'm sitting here thinking like, it's very thought-provoking. I love it.
Good.
And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but with confidence comes consistency. Would that be fair to say?
That's an interesting question. I think with confidence comes consistency of action.
Yeah.
Or consistency of process. But actually, if I was to go out and if I was going to take up martial arts,
sure,
I've never done it before. I haven't got a clue. But if all of a sudden I got really interested in it, and for some reason I thought it was going to improve my health or my lifestyle or whatever, if I'm confident that I can learn, if I'm confident that I can stick to something, it might take me 6 or 8 or 12 months or 2 years to become any good, but I would still be confident enough to keep doing something badly.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you're right. So with confidence comes consistency to a process, but what I wouldn't want it to sound like is confidence always has to equal doing things well, being successful, being good at things. Because I think they're slightly different things. Sometimes when I'm speaking about confidence or training people on confidence, people go, oh yeah, but you get to be confident when you're good at something. And actually, I think that's the wrong formula. If people in the UK will know this, but there's a product called WD-40, which is kind of like a spray-on lubricant that you use to stop things squeaking. And if you don't know what WD-40 is, go and look at the website. There are over 2,000 uses for WD-40 if you go and have a look on the website. And I often talk about confidence being a WD-40 for organization, for learning, for life, because if you know the secret of confidence and you apply it, then it makes everything else easier. It makes everything else easier.
I like that. That's very, very nice. So could you talk me through, okay, let's do a bit of role playing. So you know that you're going to be speaking in, say, from 200 to 500 people.
Okay.
Fresh environment, say it's an Atomy event, okay? You've not done one of those live. How do you get yourself prepared to actually walk through the curtain and say, hello everyone? Is there a persona you put on? Is there is there a ritual that you have? What is it that you do that makes you ready, set and go?
Okay. So actually my prep to make that moment of walking out on stage, give it the best chance for success, starts way back. Yep. And again, this might not be kind of the most, the most interesting thing. It would be much easier for me to say, oh yeah, there's this moment and this thing I do. Just actually, what it starts with is at some point before making sure that I'm prepared, and that isn't about, for me, it's not about having a script. It's not about being overly rigid in my content preparation, but I know the audience, I know the outcomes I'm looking to achieve. But one of the key things that I think is really useful, because not a lot of people know it, is that I will absolutely try and find a way before the event to connect with one or two important people. So if you were there,
yep.
and if one or two others from Atomy that I know were there, then that's probably taken care of. But if there was a whole new audience where I didn't know anyone, I would make sure that I found a way somehow to connect with just one or two people ahead of the game. Because then that means when I'm out there and I'm taking the first, I'm in that first 30 to 60 seconds, which is the most nervy time for many people. I have that connection because I know there are one or two people in the room who are rooting for me.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. The moments just before I walk out, I am an enormous fan and advocate of breathing techniques. Okay. So, and again, if people know my background, I'm a fisherman's son from the northeast of England. Breathing techniques would not be the kind of thing I'd be brought up with, but I learned it on a course about 15 years ago, and there is enormous value in learning breathing techniques, and I've got one or two that I use, and it just helps to reset and regulate my state, my emotional state, how I feel at the moment that I walk out. But also there's some really kind of practical things around it, because when we get nervous, our breath tends to shorten, our chest tends to tighten, the kind of areas around the voice box tends to go, so we kind of run out of breath in the middle of a sentence. And if we breathe too much, too lightly, we can go a bit dizzy. All the things you don't want on stage in front of a couple of hundred people, right? Or in front of three. So just regulating my breathing, then make sure that my kind of breathing apparatus and my vocal apparatus are opened up and ready to go, and I can walk out there. And then now, because I know it, I don't need to work on it. But again, back in the day, if I was doing it new, I knew what my physiology was like, how I walked when I was feeling at my most confident. So even if I wasn't, I would adopt that physiology as I walked on. But the important thing is, it's not adopting a persona.
No.
It's just stepping into a version of me that exists kind of in lots of areas of my life. And then that's the thing for me. And I will absolutely know I will have nailed the first 30, 60 seconds of whatever it is. I'd make sure I knew everything, but that first bit, there'll be something in that process that I would be saying or doing which I know is going to settle me in. And then there's, I'm drawing on lots of different techniques as we go through to make sure that it's successful.
Yeah, exactly, because it's that moment, you have an announcer, okay, make way, okay, put your hands together, blah, 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 a round of applause, then you step on, then it's silent.
Yeah.
And then it's just, you have control over the whole room.
Yeah, totally. And I've seen.
But you must enjoy that kind of environment where it's just silent and then you speak.
I think so. I must do, because I've done it. I've done it long. Look, I've messed it up lots. Yeah. There's lots of moments I haven't. And again, it goes back to a point earlier on about when a baby takes their first steps, and they take that first couple of steps and then fall over, we don't go, oh, they're not a walker, are they? Let's get, that's them done. And yet as adults, we expect of ourselves to get so many things right first time.
Oh, God.
And, sometimes it's just about practice. But there are, for example, if somebody's introducing me, I give them the introduction. I ask them.
I think that's good, because a lot of the time, especially for myself, and working with our members and working with other people, a lot of the people are like, yeah, sure, I'll come on, I'll help you out, I'll film with you, I'll do this, and then you're there like, you know, you feel like, do I ask them about their backstory? Like, you know, what's your experience, expertise? And then you go, right. They kind of give you like a vague sort of run around, and then you have to try and then all that happens is like, oh, actually, you missed out that I have this qualification.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, if you would have just told me, you know what I mean? So I appreciate.
Yeah. When it matters, we just, one of the things that we can do to manage the situation is just to something like that. It sets us up for success because we ask people to mention something that's relevant. Or again, I've seen people walk on stage and they go, "How are you?" And everyone's like, Well, that's if people have come to a conference, and this is probably different for Atomy conferences because people want to be there.
Sure. But
in business conferences, some people want to be there and some people don't. Going, "How are you?" probably isn't going to set you up for success in that first 30 seconds, you know? So there's definitely something about managing things that we can to create that moment of success. And I think that's then what I enjoy. There's that mix of anticipation of not knowing how it's going to go, but knowing that this is in place, that's in place. And as long as I do the you know, bridging the gaps between those and, you know, using things that I learned and knowing my stuff, you know, then it's going to go well the vast majority of times.
Good. Now, I kind of want to move into the digital sphere. You know, offline, you know 100% there's going to be people, you know, you can see people's reactions in real time. You know, with digital, obviously you can do that, but a lot of the time, and just for context, like so Richard has produced a series of videos for us in the past to talk about leadership qualities and other bits and bobs. But what I'm trying to say is that how do you react, or how do you kind of envisage an audience reacting when nobody's there and you're just in front of the camera? So what techniques do you kind of deploy yourself when you're doing a piece to camera to kind of make sure that you're saying the right things, even though there's no one giving you any feedback?
Yeah, we're now starting to tie together some of the strands that we've talked about. So for me, first of all, if I believe that the content is going to be valuable for the audience, and then I know the content well enough, then I know I'm going to be passionate about it. So for me, the job, you know, recording videos like that when I'm in my office and there's the camera and there's the lights, and actually weirdly, because of the way that I've got the setup, actually I'm on the TV, I can see myself right behind the camera.
Oh, nice.
But actually all I'm focusing on is making sure I'm like right, you know, as much as I can, right down the lens, you know, down the lens. So for me, if I'm in that type of situation, I tend not to be thinking about the audience. I am, if I know the content's right if this video is going to be valuable for that audience in the way that, for example, you folks set it up for me, then I knew it would be, then all I'm doing is being passionate about it and doing a good job, because that'll rub off.
Yes. Yeah.
Having said that, I kind of give a different example, which I think is probably more useful actually. So I mentioned Michael Heppel earlier on. Yeah. He does a lot of work online. So he does a lot of lives, and I know he does a lot of training. He speaks at conferences online, and I hope he doesn't mind saying this. I'm asking for forgiveness rather than permission from. But he has a character stuck just above his camera.
Yeah.
And so when he's presenting, so he hasn't, you know, he's often presenting to hundreds, if not thousands of people at one time. But what he's doing is connecting totally with that little character. Yeah. Who, that is somebody, you know, that's a representation of somebody who's thinking about all the time. So he's giving the best presentation to that person who's stuck just above his camera. And actually, I think that is it. I think if I was starting again, that's what I do. I'd find something which was a representation, and I would do an amazing job for that one person, and I know then it would then hit home for everybody else.
Solid answer. Love it. Right, we're going to go to a short break, but yeah, lots more to learn. Hopefully you've enjoyed it so far. Back in a minute.
Hello everyone, I'm Yasmin. Today I'm back with another Atomy tutorial. This time, we're going to be focusing on the Atomy skincare set, which can be easily applied in 3 easy steps so that you can achieve flawless skin. The 3 elements of Atomy are toner, essence, and lotion. Starting out with toner, you can apply this to your face and neck using either your fingers or a cotton pad. You'll need to make sure that you spread the toner evenly across your face, targeting the oily parts of your skin, mainly in the T-zone. The best part about a toner is the citrus scent, which smells amazing and it leaves your skin feeling rehydrated and refreshed. Next up, Atomy Essence. The essence requires such a small amount to give your skin a little boost. You only need to apply 2 to 3 pumps in the palm of your hands, then gently massage this into your face. You'll instantly be able to feel how moisturised your skin is. Now to finish off the skincare routine, lotion. Our lotion feels light and applies easily, whilst leaving the skin feeling smooth and soft. You can then apply this by pouring a small amount into the palm of your hands, then gently massage into your skin. Our products have been designed to absorb quickly, meaning the skin isn't left feeling sticky. And that's it. 3 steps to perfect melt skincare from Atomy.
Okay, welcome back. So I'm still here with Richard, thankfully. Hasn't run away just yet. No, you've imparted some great wisdom so far. Just moving, kind of steering the conversation back towards our members. So a lot of our members do have confidence issues, and they do have motivation issues, and you know, there's a sense of needing to keep up, which is quite overwhelming. So can you tell me about any motivation techniques? Like, how do you manage motivation? What's your definition of it? Like, yeah, just sort of lean into it.
Yeah, I think in those moments when I've not known what to do, or I felt like it's not working, or it feels, you know, like I'm being worn down, the single best thing that any of us can do is something. Do something. So if I go back to when the pandemic hit, for example, we'd had a really good couple of years in the business, but more than 70% of our clients were in leisure, hospitality, attractions, you know, theme parks.
All the big ones.
All of the big
Collapsed.
ones. And I sat and, you know, wondered where this left us, you know, in terms of a business. And so I sat down with the team and said, I don't really know what we should do, but we'll do something. And we made some decisions on the back of that. And day to day, moment to moment, when it's hard, for me, the important thing is to do something. And I think there's lots of, you know, we again teach stuff about motivation and how we can tap into our values, and you know, all of those things are relevant. But I think if somebody out there is listening to this and feeling like they've tried and it's not where it is, and do something, try something different. And if that doesn't work, just try something different.
Yeah.
And then try something different, and something will click. And with me, it was some online content. You know, we hadn't done very much online content really up to that point, certainly in our marketing and business generation. And we did some Zoom stuff that people could join, and that was in the midst of lockdowns where, you know, nobody had any budget. We just did stuff to help people out and keep our name out there a little bit. And then as we came out of the pandemic, you know, I had this idea. This is probably a little look behind the curtains, because I don't know for sure how it looks to clients and people I'm connected with on likes of LinkedIn, etc. What I hope it looked like was some really nice video content that had some nice insights onto it, and delivered in really short, sharp bursts. The behind the curtain bit was, we'd done video content before, and we'd posted it via Vimeo. Yep. And people haven't come across Vimeo, bit like YouTube, alternative to YouTube. And it wasn't getting very many views on the social media platforms we posted it on. And I worked out that because when you post on LinkedIn to Vimeo, you're taking yourself off the LinkedIn platform. LinkedIn don't like it, so the algorithm means you don't get seen very much. Yes. So everyone went, oh, those short videos, oh, what a brilliant idea. The idea wasn't really to do short videos. The idea was to do videos that were a file size enough for us to be able to post it directly onto LinkedIn, onto Facebook, onto Instagram, and onto Twitter. Now, so I guess what I'm saying is, sometimes the smart ideas aren't smart ideas at all. It just comes from going, I need to do something, so I'm going to try this. We have a really well-developed, in-depth strategy which directs where our business is going. And wrapped around that are these moments of going, well, let's just try that, let's just do that. So if you're feeling worn down, if you're feeling like you're lacking motivation, or you feel like you're up against it, your resilience is being waned, just try something different. Do something. Keep going. Try something else tomorrow, and something will click, and it will help you then to go, right, I'm going to do more of that.
That's it. I mean, for me in my personal life, I always say it's better to do 1% of something than 100% of nothing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Even if that 1%, like say if you're going to the gym or something, it's like, just go outside. You know what I mean? If you don't want to go for a run, or you don't want to go for a walk with your dog or something, just go stand in the garden. It's something.
Totally. Yeah, you know, I was reading something. I think it was maybe James Clear who wrote Atomic Habits. And again, he's somebody who's he's one of the weekly newsletters that comes into my inbox, and I read it. I make sure that I read it every week. It's some amazing stuff in there. Maybe it's a James Clear thing, I'm not sure, but he absolutely talked about, if you know, the way to get to go for a run is to put your shoes on, put your trainers on, because once you got your trainers on, you're much more likely. And I'd say, I'm out of the habit of exercising as much as I want to. But, I know if I book into the fitness class that I go to in the morning, I'm much more likely to go. And if I really don't want to go, I put my kind of workout gear on. And once I'm there, I'm kind of like, oh, I may as well go. And then, of course, I go and I really enjoy it. So, and the other thing I want to say about motivation, which is something that, again, certainly got me through lockdowns, and I continue to do, which is I find really helpful from a resilience and well-being point of view, is I have a really simple process that I do most days, typically in the morning, sometimes in the evening. And I think I might have mentioned this on one of the videos, but I think about 3 things that went well yesterday, no matter how small it was. I think about 3 things that I'm grateful for generally. And again, that might be something, big and significant, like my kids and my wife, or my health, or it might be something small like the fact that
I had my favourite dinner.
Exactly, or a connection worked when I was traveling or whatever. And then I think of I guess what the personal development people call an affirmation, but a kind of if it's in the morning, I go like, actually, what do I want to be saying at the end of today? If I'm getting into bed and it's been, what would I love to be saying about how the day's gone? And I do that really regularly, and it definitely helps lift my spirits, give me more energy, give me motivation to go again.
Yeah, no, I mean, I do that, but in written form.
Brilliant.
Because for me, I'm a chronic overthinker, and I would say that I'm more of a futurist. I don't really live in the present, and that's something that I'm working on. But I found that since journaling, I've been more, receptive to living in the moment and being like, cool. You can navigate this situation now. You don't need to give yourself 3 months to do it. Just do it now, or whatever. And I think there's a strange relationship with time as well, isn't there?
Yeah, and I absolutely live in the future. I'm always looking forward to. I'm very optimistic. That was really destructive during lockdown, and I do my best to live in the present more. I am not very good at it.
I think that's what the pandemic taught me as well, because you were always tricking yourself like, oh, we'll be out of it in 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Oh, the business will, there'll be a spike come May. It will clear, and then it doesn't happen, and you're like, it's crushing.
Yes, 100%.
And you must have just been like, oh my god, and then you do it again.
Yeah,
you go,
totally.
August.
Absolutely, and I've got to say, and this goes back to a point you made earlier on about surrounding yourself with the right group of people. Now, my wife she's not an optimist in that sense.
Yeah.
She doesn't kind of look forward to in the same way that you and I do.
Yeah.
But as a team during lockdown, it really worked, because in those moments, she was lending support to me in terms of, actually, well, let's just get to lunchtime then. So team support is really good. But now journaling, I don't say it doesn't work for me. I don't journal. I have done in periods. It's never become a habit that's stuck with me.
Yeah.
I have my own kind of mental process that I work through to kind of do the same reflection. But I know people who are, again, think a lot, find it, I would advocate journaling massively,
Yeah.
even though I want to be transparent. So it's not something to do with. There's one guy in particular who I know who does a lot of work in personal development. His current work really is triggered from the fact that he felt suicidal about 3-4 years ago, and he advocates journaling enormously for that processing of thoughts and getting it out. So it's definitely something for people to try.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that, and this is just about the pandemic, but I think a change of behaviour, you know, being able to, well, especially as you can relate as a futurist, almost as I call it, you know, you're always thinking 2-3 months ahead, but then if you, or weeks or days or whatever it is, but if you just concentrate on getting to lunchtime, getting to dinner, getting to the evening, all right, what am I going to watch tonight? Like your day becomes, I don't know, time then becomes a very different thing, doesn't it? Because your perception of a week is very long if you live minute to minute. But if you live week to week, a week is like that. It's gone.
But this is where, you know, I make no excuses about mentioning my family a lot, because, you know, they're so important to us. But it's brilliant when we can go, actually, I've got this, you know, I'm going abroad to work for the first time in the last 2 years at the beginning of March, and I'm quite looking forward to it. I'm going to Malta. I've never been to Malta before. I'm only there for a couple of days, but it'll be a brilliant group of people. So there's that kind of looking forward to that, making sure all the steps are in place. But what I also need to be able to do is, when I go home tonight, is sit down with my 4-year-old and be there with him.
That's right, yeah.
And be present with my wife. And so being able to switch from one to the other, I think is really important. And there's definitely a balance to that.
Yeah, and I think that actually contributes to motivation as well, because it's easier, in my experience anyway, you might say otherwise, but it's easier to motivate myself when I live day to day than when I live weeks in advance. But I don't know if you can relate to that.
Yeah, well, I think it's both. I do. I think it's both. Like, if I'm about to create some video, when we sat down, I just wanted to do a really good job right now, you know. But you're right. At the same time, there are, you know, we've got a strategy in our business that runs to the end of 2023, and I also want to do. It's really stretching. I also want to do a really good job, but I think I think it's just awareness, and it sounds so blanket, but and that's where something like journaling can help, because I remember I mentioned Michael Neal earlier on one of the coaching sessions we had. I had this idea that I wasn't active on social media at the time. It was probably there, but it wasn't like it is now. And I had this, like, I wanted to get this particular message out, and I was really passionate about people being really happy at work. It was at the time. And he said, right, what's the goal? And I said, if I can get that out to 100,000 people. And he's like, right, I tell you what you can do. You record an audio now, you send it to me. I've got 100,000 people that I can get it out to, or between us, we have a network. So that'll be done tomorrow. What are you going to do now? and I was like, oh my God. And again, the reason I say that is because sometimes when we're always thinking about how can we do that, almost it becomes demotivation because we don't focus on that next step that's in front of us. So it's having both. It's having the big audacious goals and doing things each day and enjoying the process. When we do values, work a lot with individuals and with companies. And if I was to list my personal values, I've got this weird value, which is, I can only best describe it as enjoying the struggle towards success.
I love the chase.
I love totally
the TV show, and also and also the that's what I always say, and I think that a lot of our members should take this on board, like the chase to, so in the Atomy we have masterships, but the chase to rise up the ranks or the promotions or whatever it is, for me, and I think for the members, should be the bit that they enjoy the most, because getting to the top of the mountain is the trip. But when you look down, you know, lend your hand and support and help others come up, and you know, try and share that experience, because It's so fun.
Yeah,
it's so fun.
And on that, then, if that's really relevant, I think one of the best things that people can do is work out how they make it a game for themselves.
Yes.
Right. So as I said, my main kind of sport, my main game was football. I wasn't very good at it, but I enjoyed it. And you know, the kids that I coach now laugh at me because I say the thing that I miss most about playing football is I miss waking up on a Monday morning sore.
Yes. Yeah.
Because I used to head the ball a lot. It was pretty much all I was good at. And if I woke up and I felt like my head was a bit bruised, I knew I'd done a good job.
Yeah.
So when we look at most things that we do, from bringing up kids to building a business to playing sport of whatever sort, or if you're into the arts, there's something about it which is this kind of dance or wrestle or working out of it. There are very few games that we play of any sort that are always fun all of the time. You know, if you played Monopoly and you had the most money and you just got to buy everything from it, it is no fun to that. So instead of it being about the struggle of life, or the struggle of building a business, or the struggle of selling the first product, or the 1,000th product, or the 1,000,000th product, or whatever, if we make it a game that we all we need to do is try and work it out, and try and work out how to do it the best way for us, and again for the people who we're interacting with, then when the bumps come along and the knocks come along and the elbows come along, it's all part of the game. Absolutely. And I think making it a game, that's really healthy.
Yes, that's powerful. Just want to touch on one more subject. How do you kind of teach or encourage people to sell themselves or a product? You know, there's the old, here's a pen, sell me a pen, all of that stuff. But what is it that you say to individuals or corporations?
Yeah.
In order to sell, you must do X. Yeah. What is it that you...
So if, for example, it was a makeup product or something which is widely available, or there are different versions of, it might require a little bit more thinking. But that process of working out what is different about this, or what is different about buying it from me, and then what that helps you to do is to work out who are the best people to sell it to first or next. You know, in our world, we often think about avatars, client avatars, we call them. So who's lying awake at night with a product that the stuff that we completely believe in and we know works, who's lying awake at night with a problem that solves? And so that's the first part of the thought process for me. And that would be it no matter, you know, what the product or the service was. And even if I was eventually looking to sell this thing to the whole wide world, I would start by niching the product down a little bit so that I had a very specific audience to connect with, because that makes preparing the messages and setting myself up easier when I know that there's this thing that is unique and different in some way that helps this group of people, and then the audience can grow. And then the second thing, and I think it's so important, is to be yourself. Yeah. I see so many people who go into sales or business generation situations and they try and be something else. They try and be how they think somebody who's doing this should be. And we can sense that lack of transparency. We can sense when people aren't being themselves. So show up as yourself. Show up as your best self.
Yeah.
But show up as yourself.
Yeah, I think that's a really bit of powerful advice, because a lot of people are fooled into thinking, you know, if you put on a suit. For me, and, you know, others who may be listening, when I approach selling, not that I do selling, but when I approach, you know, just in daily interactions with people where perhaps like right now, you know, I've got to be this version of myself, you know, really chatty and outward. What I tend to do is I think that you don't need to, just because you're wearing a certain item of clothing, you should still have the same approaches on both sides. And I think that people should apply that concept. So, you know, a lot of people think like if you look good, you smell good, you've got a suit on, that's confidence. But for me, I try to have that same level of confidence, be it in a suit or not, you know, in your casual day wear. Yeah. Because I think if you can master that, then you can obviously push boundaries and do what you need to do.
No, I agree.
I think with our members, especially, and this is where you could offer some useful advice. There are people who are in the business who've been in it 5, 6, 7 years. They're doing quite well, financially speaking, and they're valued and established in the field. How would you, what advice would you give them to make sure that they don't just sort of plateau and just sit back and rest on their laurels?
I think there's something about looking at a business in that respect, in the context of life more broadly. I think great business goals and really stretching business goals get people to a certain point. But I think, especially when it's that kind of business, which is about you, and you may have people who are supporting you, but there's something about, I always speak to people who are potentially looking to join our team and get them to think about, how do you create the business that you want, but also the life you want to lead?
Yes.
And I'd urge people to think about that in the broader context, because there aren't that many people, I believe anyway, who are happy with just a plateau.
No.
Now, if people have, worked really hard and got to a point and either burnt themselves out or they don't think that for them anymore, cool, do something different. But if you're at a point, then what is the next thing that's going to motivate you to kick on? And it might not be it's not likely to be the business numbers, I don't think. It's the business numbers. That success is a conduit to something else.
Yes.
And I think thinking more broadly about that is really, really valuable.
No, I think that's good. That's good, because that is something that people have said. It's like, yeah, I'm doing it. I'm doing well. I'm 10 years into the process, or I'm 5 years into the process now. And they're almost frightened to get back to their younger, hungrier self, because they've almost got so comfortable that any rejection or hardship would be very damaging to their reputation or the way that they conduct themselves. So
the other thing is, and I think it's really important, goes back to the kind of having a struggle versus making a game of it that we touched on earlier on.
Yeah.
So sometimes in our early days there is value in being driven by fear of whatever sort.
Yes.
But it's not very nice, it's not very comfortable. Again, I'll quote Michael Neal again, he used to say, there's this whole thing about no pain, no gain. He was like, no pain, no pain. It's like, not everything has to be driven by fear. So one of the things that people could do, I mentioned scaling earlier on, is go right on a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 is, the best business you could ever imagine with all of the lifestyle it gives you. Where are you now? And if somebody is in that position where they've been doing it for 10 years or whatever, my guess is they're probably at a 7 or an 8, something like that, let's say. Well, the idea then isn't, for me anyway, to make it more painful in order to drive on. The question I'd be saying is, okay, so what would have to happen to move you from a 7 to an 8 or an 8 or a 9? And do more of that. Because again, it's likely to be the stuff they're good at, they're passionate about. Or if they went out and read something different, learned something new, because that changes the context of what's possible, that can be enough to go, actually, now I need to put this into action. So there's something about that idea of continuously developing self, not just person as a business. I did a load of work in cricket a few years ago, and it was something that one of the cricket counties I worked with said, and it was a really successful one. And we were doing some stuff, I think, on leadership. And I said, it's really interesting. You're really successful. You're probably going to win the county championship this year. Yet here you are doing something on leadership. He said, actually, through the close season, a lot of the players had done personal development activities on a whole range of things from, I think some of them had done some accountancy stuff. One of them had done a carpentry course or something. And then he said, if we make them more developed, more rounded people, they're not going to be worse cricketers.
No.
But the chances are can change their perspective, and it'll bring insights that'll help them to be even better cricketers or even better as a team. And I think there's something about that broad stroke, developing yourselves, shifts your horizons and your goals that's useful.
It's almost like gamifying your life, isn't it? Some people say this is really bad, but life isn't a joke, life is serious, blah 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 blah. But if you gamify it with a positive influence and reaction and reception to things, it's untold what you can do.
Absolutely.
Because then you are, you might go, oh, if you are this person who's sort of 5 to 10 years in and you're on a 7, and you're going, do you know what, to get me to the next, say even if you can comfortably retire, say, right, and you think, right, what is missing in those 3 other chapters almost, and you think, gosh, I'd love to do more charitable work, or I'd love to do, I'd love to almost press restart and help again. I'm gonna, branch off and start helping people way down the bottom and like going from the top again, almost coaching them, almost. So yeah, no, I think that's really, really useful. Right, I think if you don't mind, it would be good to kind of finish off on some good bits of advice, just for anyone who's about to kind of make their first foray into content creation, and also those who have listened to this and they've taken your words of wisdom. What's the action from listening to you?
I guess the first action is to take action. Do something.
Yeah.
Start. Begin. That's the first thing. I guess if there was one thing that I would want to underpin everything is, I guess it's a metaphor that I use a lot, which some people know what I'm talking about. Others might need to go and have a quick look on the internet. We use the metaphor of Weebles quite a lot, which was a toy that was around kind of in the late 70s and 80s. It was most popular. It's made a small comeback. And Weebles are just small. I always carry one in my bag, and there's one on my desk. They're egg-sized, egg-shaped, and the characters have got a face on. And the whole game when I was a kid, way back when, was you would have a family of Weebles, and all they do is you can tip them over and they stand back up again because you've got living in them.
Familiar with them, yeah.
Yeah. So, and the advertising campaign back in the day there was a song to it, but the strapline was Weebles wobble, but they don't fall down. And I think that's a brilliant metaphor for us as human beings, and when it comes to well-being and resilience and getting started. We are Weebles. We are predisposed to being tipped over, but we are self-righting by nature.
Yes.
There is nobody who is watching or listening that is broken.
No.
And if we try something and it doesn't work, we're still not broken.
Yeah.
And actually, to reset, we don't actually have to do anything. It's in our natural makeup. Now, looking after ourselves and doing lots of the stuff we've talked about today helps. But if there was, if there was one thing I would say is know that you're a self-righting being, see yourself as a Weeble. And that means when it comes to things like confidence, if we believe and understand and know that confidence is part of our default state, for example, that means we don't have to build the confidence to go out and sell a product, because we just are. All we have to do is tap into something which is natural to us, and sometimes we don't notice is there anyway. And that for me is part of the kind of fundamental, secret of confidence that people don't understand. Confidence is just a state that we access some of the time, and we notice it when it's not there. We are self-righting. We're perfectly okay. That's how we're born. We're not broken. And if we start anything on the backdrop of that, it makes the game much more enjoyable. Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much. I think that throughout this whole podcast episode, I almost feel like it's been better for me. It's just been great. Like, what I'm trying to say is that I've really enjoyed speaking with you, and a lot of the things that you've said will stay with me for a long time, so thank you. What I would like to do now is just give you the floor, really, to kind of help our members contact you, or find more of your material. So yeah, if you go ahead, speak to them down the lens, say where to find you. Yeah, there was one place I was going to guide you to understand and maybe learn more about some of the stuff that we've talked about, and things like vision, values, leadership, the work to do. The book, The 50 Secrets of Self-Confidence, is still available on Amazon. It's been out a few years now. It's sold 22,000 copies in 14 different countries, and it's got short chapters, snippets of lots of what we've talked about, and lots of other stuff. So I'd encourage you to pick that up. And yeah, in the back there is
an invitation to come back and share with me insights and things that you've done as a result of reading the book. And what it is, 5-6 years on now, I still get at least one email every month of somebody saying, I've taken this on board and this is the difference it's made. So I'd love to hear from you once you've read the book and put it into action.
I'll be sure to get my own copy, and I hope many others who are watching do as well. But no, thank you so much for your time today. Yeah, I'm forever grateful, and I'm sure that our members will be.
It's been a real pleasure. Thank you very much.
Okay, so for now, that's it for this week, but we'll see you soon. Take care. Goodbye.